So, I watched a lot of BL lately. For those of you who don't know, BL or boys love is a specific genre of romance that focuses on the love relationship between two males. Mainly written by women for women. I cannot remember which one was my first and how it appeared on my feed. It must have been the Run BTS supercuts that I've binge watched for a few weeks as a substitute of seeing and interacting with real people because I'm too lazy to leave the house. But I am fascinated. I have seen moments of brilliant romantic storytelling. Let me tell you, I have had a bout of butterflies in my stomach just because of how tense and cute a scene was at the same time. Never had that before. I sobbed away a life's worth of repressed emotions and self-hatred with a character into the arms of his lover and witnessed confessions of love so vulnerable and raw. The pain haunts me to this day.
我们再一次好不好？我们重来一次好不好？
However, something was always missing. No matter how beautifully acted, shot, or written a lot of the scenes were. Whenever the climax rolled around, the part of the story that should finally burst this pustule of worry and longing into a blissful eruption of vicarious emotion and a dose of oh so sweet oxytocin was supposed to finally flood my bloodstream. I felt either nothing, totally baffled, or anxiety.
我怎么可能只让你当特助啊？我至少也会让你当技术长。
但是技术者不能一直在你身边。
告诉他 Amor, stop being so controlling. Until So, in this video, I will juxtapose History 3 Trapped and two other shows of the same genre to explain how it was able to succeed where all the other shows failed, and the element that was put in place to give History 3 Trapped the chance to not only have emotional moments, but to weave them all together into a story that is effective and satisfying until the end. As a drama, but most importantly, as a true romance. A tale about the power of intimacy and love. In storytelling, the main ingredient that will get the audience's pot of emotions all hot and bubbly is conflict. When you look what basic elements a text must have to be called a story, you usually get this. There is a protagonist. The protagonist wants something and has to face opposition in order to get it. So, in order to achieve an effective emotional climax in the audience, one of the main tasks a storyteller has is to orchestrate this very conflict, build it, and release it in the most effective and thus satisfying way. One classical template on how to do this was introduced by Gustav Freytag. He proposes to start your story with a phase of exposition in which no real conflict is present to introduce your characters and what it is that they want. Then, in an inciting incident, the access to this desire is suddenly blocked or threatened by the antagonist, directly or indirectly. This is the moment the conflict is introduced. And this is also the moment when the story starts, because that is what a story is made of after all. all the things the protagonist is forced to oppose, learn, lose, and fight in order to get what they want. To keep this constant struggle interesting and entertaining, Freitag recommends to continually intensify the conflict from the inciting incident to the climax. This is usually achieved by a constant raise of stakes, meaning the closer the protagonist gets to the goal, the bigger and more dangerous the hurdles, and the bigger the potential loss. Great. But what does any of this has to do with romance? Where does opposition in a love story come from? Let me just... there it is. Oh! In his book, The Anatomy of Story, Truby states that in a romance, in terms of story function, the lover is actually the main opponent. If you want the sparks to fly, you need blades to clash. How often is it that it is the lover themselves standing in the way of what the main lead wants? However, if opposition in a romance comes from the lover-to-be, how come we achieve a happily ever after and do not end up with one or the other dead like in a traditional drama? For a romance, Billy Murnett proposes an additional antagonist for a main lead, one that is so powerful that can only be faced together, and even then, never defeated. Because against this foe, survival and growth can only be achieved by total surrender, lending a true romance its defining theme: love itself. Murnett states, therefore, in an effective romance during the exposition, we usually meet our protagonist loveless or in the wrong relationship. And it is not only their soulmate they meet when the goals are challenged in the inciting incident, but the frightening power of love and intimacy itself. And during the raising action, they rejected, let their guard down, rejected again, accepted more and more, until in the last moment, when everything seems lost, they give in completely, lay themselves bare, and get not what they wanted, but what they needed, by succumbing to the transforming power of love, in what Murnett calls the joyous defeat. They lose, but win after all. Now, let's see how trapped fares in all of this. In fact, it takes History 3 Trapped all but 5 minutes to introduce its main leads and set them up as each other's main opponent. In modern Taipei, we meet Tang Yi, a young and handsome boss of a mafia family, right in the middle of a tense meeting with a fellow mafia leader, which gives us a clue about what it is that he wants right away. He is in the process of going legitimate. He wants to leave illegality and the drug trade behind to ensure a quiet life for everyone who works for him, free from persecution by police or other drug traffickers. A mobster with a heart of gold. But not only that, the scene is also full of hints about his personality. We see how he stays cool when the other guy threatens him, traces of arrogance when he is faced with the evidence of his mobsters breaking mafia law, and meticulous, not only in his appearance, but in his mind. Turns out, the meeting was a setup, planned by Tang Yi to rat his rival and his crew out to police. Now, who would be the perfect opponent to a determined and calculating criminal? A determined and slightly chaotic cop? Fun game. Take a shot whenever you see this strand of hair sticking out until the end of the video. Meet Officer Mang Xiaofei, scruffy, impulsive, and wearing his heart on his sleeve, and with only one thing on his mind. He follows him outside, and we already get our first direct confrontation that tells us Officer Mang has had his mind on Tang Yi for for several years, risking fortune and career just to find a way to get Tang Yi in custody. Yet he always failed, as he does today. And at the station, we are being filled in on the origin of his vendetta and why he is bound to be in Tang Yi's way throughout the show. 4 years ago, Mang Xiaofei's mentor was shot, and with her, Tang Yi's adoptive father. And the only person who can help Mang Xiaofei solve this crime is the one surviving victim, Tang Yi. How about our second source of antagonism? Do trust and partnership already rear their terrifying heads? Well, not yet, but we get glimpses of what could make our two leads mistakenly think they might be immune. When a colleague in episode 1 brings up the possibility of love between a criminal and a man of the law, Mang Xiaofei rejects the very thought of it.
暗恋你的头，他是黑道，我是警察哎。
Tang Yi's resistance, on the other hand, becomes evident in how he treats the person he trusts and loves the most. When his adoptive sister warns him of other mafia bosses that might plan to retaliate and kill Tang Yi, and begs him to let her help him, he refuses. He needs no one, and lets no one in. He is used to handling things alone. And these notions will both be challenged in the show's inciting incident. The moment in the love story where the leads see the other as a potential lover for the first time. And the romantic conflict is finally introduced. Leading up to this, Trap manages to raise the stakes and tie the two leads together even stronger. So Tang Yi meets up with yet another mafia leader. The guy gets killed the same night, and Tang Yi's cufflink is found on the scene. Although Tang Yi is cleared eventually, he has now a second task on his plate: finding the guy who's trying to frame him. Whereas Mang Xiaofei has worked the very case Tang Yi was a suspect in, meaning Tang Yi might not only have information about the death 4 years ago, but also about the recent one. Mang Xiaofei follows him to a place Tang Yi's unknown foe frequents and where Tang Yi hopes to find him. The two of them cross paths, and they do what they always do. They fight, but unbeknownst to them, they're also fighting love. With Mang Xiaofei seeing Tang Yi only as the criminal that stands in his way, and Tang Yi aborting his mission to find the guy that framed him rather than teaming up with someone else. Two strategies of defense that soon become useless when love attacks with her most tried and irresistible opening weapon.
Good morning.
Yeah, I know. I know what you want to say, and you're right. This is not the most original maneuver a romance has ever pulled, and tried does spell tired for a reason.
Welcome home, baby!
But our other contenders also used forced proximity in one way or the other, and Trap did a pretty good version of it. They both had business being there. When coincidence is the kryptonite of a good story, we have a pretty solid chain of cause and effect. It was their belief standing in the way of intimacy and love that led them to being captured and isolated after all, and that is now being challenged. When Mang Xiaofei begins to realize that Tang Yi is more than a source of intel, more than a criminal or a prince, but a boy that had to learn how to scheme and kill and run, not out of fun, but to survive the streets. Like when Tang Yi tells him how, as a kid, he practiced the skill of escaping a handcuff, he had to break his thumb over and over again. But he did it without hesitation, because in his world, it is the only way to stay alive. And for Tang Yi, now that he suddenly has to fight with another person, he cannot hide it anymore. He craves closeness and intimacy as well. And of course, he reverts back to his old ways when the forced proximity's force is all spent.
这人到底是谁？ 没有啦，只是一起在山上过了1天1夜而已。
But we know it, and so do you. He is not just a man you spend a night with in the mountains. He is more, and even more is what he needs to become, now that we enter the phase of rising action. And again, the show is so deliberate and effective in its writing. It gives you the basic layout of how this is going to play out right in the next big scene the two leads have together. So Tang-yi gets home from the hospital and he realizes that the lighter his adoptive father gifted him is gone. The lighter Xiaofei was not allowed to touch. Has he lost it there? Never to be found again? Tang-yi is in panic until suddenly Xiaofei shows up. Out of relief and gratefulness, he invites Xiaofei to a meal. And would I have preferred that what is about to happen to be tied to our 2 open cases better? So they talked not only mundane stuff, but also plot? Yes. But all of this does not matter much, because let me tell you how artfully the show uses this mundane stuff to convey everything we need to know about their characters
需要点饮料吗？
and their relationship status, the current and the future one. Like, look what happened the last time they sat on a table together, so... But the divide is still huge, as it should be. But just watch how wonderfully it is telegraphed to us by showing what they eat and how they eat. After being initially approachable despite himself, Tang-yi is closed off again. To break the ice, Mang Xiaofei mocks him for his drink.
吃辣配什么热茶？你是老人哦。
When Tang-yi still refuses to talk or share his dish with him, Mang Xiaofei attacks with a challenge. He wants Tang-yi to try his spicy food with Mang Xiaofei's Coke. Tang-yi refuses, making Mang Xiaofei help himself to Tang-yi's food and his drink. And as this still does not give him the reaction he wanted, Mang Xiaofei finally changes seat. And it is only then that Tang-yi relents and tries something the other has ordered. So, through sheer will, Mang Xiaofei was able to not only keep them stay put at the table together, but technically share a meal by Tang-yi taking a disgusted sip of the Coke, only to wash it down with a huge gulp of tea. And now, guess which one will be the one who is hard to get, and which one will never hesitate to fight for them being close, and who dares his criminal counterpart into accepting a gift that mocks Tang-yi's cold demeanor, but jumps into protection mode the moment he is attacked, even going so far as to make himself the official police protection when he sees him shrugging the danger off, and who calls himself and Tang-yi friends when he's asked what they are, and who becomes jealous as hell when his man is getting all touchy-feely with another guy, and who admits it. And when he knows that his man is in danger, begs to be given the chance to protect him. And guess who is the one we hear is always distant, even to good friends?
这么久没见，我都不会想我。你确定要我常来吗？
The one who demotes his sparring partner to being a half-friend, although he tried to save his life minutes ago. But guess who also, when his half-friend has a conflict with his beloved sister, mends the rift and explains what she means to him.
他是刑天盟里面唯一一个我能够完全信任的人。他就是我，我就是他。
And who's almost shy when being caught drinking a Coke. But guess who still, when reminded of how close he has grown to his dedicated bodyguard, makes it clear that there is nothing between them, that both only use the other for their respective goal, and sends away the man who went out of his way to get a chance to protect him when the climax nears. Guess who sets the stage himself for love's last attack with her darkest and most vicious arrow in her quiver.
Te quiero, joder. Cabrón, han tenido que matarme para que lo dijeras.
And guess who is the one who jumps into action without a second of hesitation to shield the person his man holds dearest in the world, giving his life without a second thought. And two of them needed the challenge, the threat of losing everything, to finally surrender and to finally accept that he might be able to muster the courage to have someone by his side, accepting to get not what he wanted, but what he needed. In the end, to be the one to close the distance. Grab this new life without hesitation and try it in an enthusiastic, unrestrained gulp, succumbing to the transforming power of love in a joyous defeat. He loses, but wins after all. Let's take a look at our other contenders, shall we? As it should, Kinnporsche is right away busy with introducing us to its leads, showing them in their respective natural habitat. And personality-wise, they do already make formidable opponents. Porsche, a young bartender who is easygoing, charming, and comes around, and Kinn, son of a mafia family who's presented as cold, focused on business, and you know. How and why would they resist love? It is not presented as directly as it is in Trapped, but you can infer from the way Porsche treats the ladies. He has no interest in responsibility and commitment. Porsche wants fun. And when Kinn ends up at his bar on the run from assassins, Porsche helps, but only hesitantly. And in episode 2, we are being told that Kinn, although a middle child, had to become his father's right hand after his older brother had been kidnapped and, in the aftermath, due to his PTSD, was not fit for the job anymore. And that Kinn had not always been this paranoid and cruel, but a kind man who loved his people. Could it be that the unforeseen responsibility of being a future mafia leader made him deny himself any type of compassion or love? Now, how can we bring them to fight so that while fighting the other, love is able to sneakily obliterate all of their defenses against partnership and trust?
Good morning.
Told ya. In the first episode, Porsche is threatened to lose his and his brother's home. He tries to make money, but it is not enough. Kinn's father, having seen Porsche fight, sends Kinn to recruit Porsche as a bodyguard, but Porsche is proud, running away from this commitment by literally jumping ship. Then we find out his uncle gambled away all of their money. Porsche has no other chance. To save his brother and their home, he has to give up fun and freedom. Will he learn to take responsibility and overcome his hatred of being tied down and be ready to make sacrifices for others? And Kinn, can he free the young man inside of him that yearns for connection and trust from under the weight and the armor he had to put on, being the heir to a criminal empire?
มึงก็อย่าลืมว่าตอนเนี้ยชีวิตมึงเป็นของกูแล้วชีวิตกูเป็นของกูเดี๋ยวมึงก็รู้
Not so fast. The bigger the resistance, the sweeter the surrender. Episode 2 and 3 are basically a battle of wills, with Porsche not liking to be given orders and Kinn longing to force the loose cannon in his staff into doing his job. But the inciting incident, the introduction of the other as a potential romantic partner, is near. There is something that fascinates Kinn with this proud and unruly man we're being shown. And Porsche, he is competitive. He is a fighter. He overcomes part of his defiance and begins to gain respect for his competence among his co-workers and Kinn's brother. And when Kinn takes him to a mission for the first time, He's not only the first one to take control when they're being attacked, he literally takes a bullet aimed at the man that tried everything to break him until now. And that man is impressed. And after this Porsche, who deducts that the shooting must have been an ambush orchestrated by a mole in Kin's team, Kin cannot deny his attraction anymore. On a party after the mission, the proximity is suddenly not forced, but wanted. When they are alone on the pier, Porsche, proud of his accomplishments and happy to have fun again, even if it is only for one night, dares to share that he's more rattled by the attack than it seems, and how difficult it is for him to come to terms with killing a man and now being a criminal and a mobster himself, just like the loan sharks that brought him here in the first place. And Kin, drunken by the night and the victory, the first time seeing this man not as an opponent, but someone he can trust and could work with, gives up all of his defenses for one moment. How did the writers choose to up the ante during the rising action to come and keep our two hopelessly smitten, lovey-dovey cuties from entering the haven of a committed partnership prematurely and thus from becoming boring? Yep, it is certainly a choice. Not one that I find particularly helpful when you're planning on sending your couple into a relationship that is healthy and does not entail one partner having trouble to respect the personal boundaries of his lover. One cornerstone of trust, the thing that humans need to love and be vulnerable. Okay, let's see how I can sell this to you as a necessary and meaningful plot point. Well, I already sold you the rest of this mess, so Porsche has forgotten the kiss. Yee! And Kin, right, have someone make him go evil again. Vegas, he is Kin's cousin and scheming to undermine Kin's position in the hierarchy and is ready to use Porsche as a pawn. On an auction, he drugs Porsche, plans on raping him as a message to Kin, but Kin interrupts him and saves Porsche, and when Porsche vomits from the drugs, he takes him to the bathroom to clean him, and then it is Porsche who initiates it and dares him to continue where they left off. You see, it is drugged Porsche who was too insistent, and Kin, he longed to be close to someone for so long, and how could he resist? You know, this isn't working. Things like that can be a meaningful plot point, even in a romance. But Kin does not nearly eat enough shit to be redeemed. And an apology? Sorry, that is not enough to signal change. Let's pretend it did not happen. They had an argument. Porsche is mad. Kin feels merely guilty, I guess, but then his dad scolds him for not having Porsche kept from drugging himself and almost getting raped. This is hard. Kin being evil again, guarding his lonely heart in this hell that is the world of the mob, reverts back to what made him survive until now. Being cruel, demanding submission, wielding his power to gain control again. He punishes Porsche in front of the others, showing that their bittersweet night meant nothing. Porsche seeks time alone, and he ends up in the arms of Vegas, oblivious to the fact that it was Vegas who attacked him at the auction before Kin took advantage of him. Kin is livid. He does not know, or he cannot tell Porsche that it was Vegas. Who knows? But their fight escalates. Porsche seeks Korn's permission to leave and gets a week off. Kin has a change of hearts. He comes to Porsche's house. He wants to be nice. And he is. And then he is not. I mean, Porsche's not helping. How can we force them to finally let trust and forgiveness into their hearts, lose the armor they build even stronger around themselves, and heal the wounds they inflicted on each other? Thugs kidnap them. They fight douche together and end up lost in the outskirts. But it works. Kin opens up how much he had to give up for his position, like following his dream, living by his own compass and his own heart. And he does. He apologizes to Porsche, and when they're finally freed from their forced proximity, he lets Porsche go. He lets him run away from this life to pursue the freedom he can never have, even if it hurts, when he was finally ready to love. And Porsche, with the trust the other man offered him, he was able to forgive. And he feels it. When Kin offers him to leave, he hesitates. He feels it. He must, because why else would he come back? He feels it. And if not then when they are overpowered and a shot is fired at them. And it is Kin who shields him. He feels it and he surrenders to love. A love that does not only seek pleasure, but a love that makes you want to make sacrifices, to protect and to commit. Both having lost to her, but one after all, in a joyous defeat. And how did I do? Again, our first scene is dedicated, just as Freitag had envisioned, to getting us to know our lead. Jean is a writer, clearly struggling. He is a successful BL author, and his publisher wants him to churn out yet another bestseller. Alas, he cannot come up with anything. His personality is then presented to us when his assistant drags him to the casting call for a BL series based on one of Jean's novels. He hates being around others. Romantic love for Jean only exists on the page.
Now that's what I call
a lead that put up a fight against trust and partnership. But who could challenge him in that? Wear him down in constant conflict to allow for love to dismantle all of his defenses. Yeah, love itself. Wait, what? He is literally the actor to play a character that Jean envisioned as a romantic interest. Nupsip embodies what Jean finds romantic and desires. And he has no personality. And he has only one objective: to woo Jean and bring trust and vulnerability into his life. What was that? And if it is not Nupsip as the embodiment of a past character, he definitely inspires a new one. It is Nupsip who finally gives Jean the idea for a plot. But being with Nupsip on the page is one thing. Accepting love in all its messiness in real life is another. When they meet and Jean is flirted with, it's too much. And while you wonder how one could create a situation in which a recluse would come into regular contact with his emotional interest logically and naturally...
Welcome home, baby!
They live together at the end of episode 1. for reasons. But say what you will, they spend a lot of scenes together. And Nupsip, like a siren, makes the case for romance and domesticity. But Jean resists. A man doesn't change that easily. And even if he has slipped up, he soon denies any type of feelings or change in himself.
มากเลยนะไปไหนมาไหนก็ถามหามึงตลอดเลยอะไม่จริงอะติดบ้าติดบอแหละ
No matter what happens on page or in his fantasy. Well, this battle is in dire need of a change of tactics. Jean is out for a meeting with his old college mates. Suddenly the topic comes to BL, and since usually women write BL, the idea is entertained that Jean might be gay. This is visibly a sore topic for him. After Tom steps in, Jean gets drunk. And no, this time no one gets taken advantage of. Nupsip brings him home, and although in his confusion and desperation, like Porsche, Jean is asking for it, Nupsip does the right thing. He declines. And it is this that brings Jean to finally allow himself vulnerability and real closeness. He asks for it. No false pretenses, no play. It is just the two of them. And when the time arrives for Nupsip to move out, the man that wanted nothing more than to be left alone and make love only in his fantasy, asks him to stay. What big reveal could the writers have come up with to keep them in conflict until that final moment they surrender to absolute trust and intimacy? Could Jean's manuscript get leaked and him and Nupsip be outed in front of the whole world? We have a BL theme here. Is there maybe a shrewd cast member with a detectable influence on their relationship? A strangely erotically loaded kiss scene between Nupsip and Aoi? A threesome? Or something that could connect Jean's life to the outcome of the show and keep them apart? What? Childhood friends? I did a whole thing with love on the page and writing, and how does this connect? Oh, so he goes home to his parents. He brings his neighbor a cake and he sees the picture. Oh, Nupsip is her son, and Jean never saw any photo. Oh well. And then he drives home and he throws Nupsip out. Aw, but why didn't Nupsip tell him his reasons? Right, he didn't get the chance. Bummer. Oh, he cries. Wow, that is surprisingly intense. Well, that sucks. Why would Jean take her back in the next episode? I mean, this guy, he's a creep. He's been lying and plotting for weeks. And he obviously has not mentally aged since his childhood. Although, I will say, seeing the flashbacks now, his child self seems far more emotionally reactive and cognitively complex than his adult version. And he realized that... What? Okay, is it the apology? Or is he also the only friend he ever had? I don't get it. And then Nupsip shows up at his doorstep, and because he's younger than Jean, and Jean can't fall in love with someone who's younger than him. I don't even know what to say to that. Oh, and now they kiss. Jean's gonna blue ball him and treat him like shit from now on? Oh, that tracks. There it is. You go, Jean! He remembers that he did love Nupsip when they were children. Not in a romantic way, but love still. and that love in reality is not like it is on the page. It is messy, and that he will love not only child Napsip, his friend, but adult Napsip, his lover too. Messy and complicated as he is.
When Napsip appears on his doorstep to explain that he only lied to Jean because he feared Jean would never accept him as his adult self,
a young man in love with Jean forgives him, embracing love and partnership, not as a fantasy, but a beautiful challenge with all its risks and all its beautiful new thing. Getting not only what he wanted, but what he needed, in a joyous defeat.
Well,
that wasn't so bad.
No, that wasn't so bad. But why making a video about how Trapped is the only BL romance that is consistently good and thematically, when the other two shows also ended perfectly fine?
Oh my god!
I sure hope these shows have some other sources of conflict set up to bring us to the climax without boring us to tears or dragging the leads through so many petty arguments and heinous betrayals for the sake of tension that you just want them to die.